My name is Emily Thompson, and I'm about to tell you a story that will chill you to your very core. A tale so terrifying, so utterly horrifying, that it has haunted my every waking moment for the past year. I'm 20 years old now, but the events I'm about to recount happened just after my 19th birthday. I was a sophomore at a small liberal arts college in New England, living what I thought was a normal, carefree life. Little did I know that everything was about to change, all because of a seemingly innocent antique doll. It all began on a crisp autumn day in October. The leaves were turning golden and red, and there was a hint of winter in the air. My roommate Lily and I decided to explore some of the quaint antique shops that dotted our college town. We were looking for some vintage decorations for our dorm room, something to give it a bit more character. As we wandered through the third shop of the day, I felt an inexplicable pull towards the back of the store. It was as if an invisible thread was tugging at my very soul, leading me to a dusty corner filled with forgotten treasures. And there, sitting on a shelf, was the doll that would change my life forever. She was beautiful in an eerie, unsettling way. Her porcelain face was delicate and perfectly crafted, with rosy cheeks and lips that seemed almost too red. Her eyes were what truly caught my attention. Deep, soulful brown eyes that seemed to follow my every move. Her dress was an intricate Victorian-style gown, complete with lace and tiny pearl buttons. But there was something off about her, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. "Emily, are you okay?" Lily's voice snapped me out of my trance. I realized I had been staring at the doll for several minutes without moving. "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, shaking my head to clear it. "Just looking at this doll. Isn't she beautiful?" Lily peered at the doll and wrinkled her nose. "Beautiful? More like creepy. Those eyes give me the heebie-jeebies." I laughed off her comment, but deep down, I knew she was right. There was something unsettling about the doll, yet I couldn't resist. I had to have her. The shop owner, an elderly man with thick glasses and gnarled hands, seemed hesitant when I brought the doll to the counter. "Are you sure you want this one, miss?" he asked, his voice quavering slightly. "I have many other lovely dolls that might suit a young lady like yourself better." But I was adamant. I paid for the doll and left the shop, cradling her in my arms like a newborn baby. Lily kept shooting concerned glances my way, but I ignored her. I was too entranced by my new possession. That night, I placed the doll on my dresser, facing my bed. As I drifted off to sleep, I could have sworn I saw her eyes blink. But that was impossible, right? The nightmares started that very night. I dreamed of dark, twisting corridors and the sound of a child's laughter echoing in the distance. In my dream, I was running, desperately trying to find the source of the laughter. But every time I thought I was getting closer, the sound would shift, coming from behind me or above me. And always, I felt a presence watching me, following me. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. My eyes immediately went to the doll on my dresser. In the dim light of early morning, her smile seemed wider, more sinister. I shook my head, trying to clear the cobwebs of sleep from my mind. It was just a dream, I told myself. Just a silly nightmare brought on by Lily's comments and my overactive imagination. But the nightmares continued, night after night. Each one more vivid, more terrifying than the last. In one dream, I found myself in an old abandoned house. The wallpaper was peeling, and the floorboards creaked under my feet. As I moved from room to room, I kept catching glimpses of a small figure darting just out of sight. And always, I heard that chilling laughter. During the day, strange things began to happen. I would come back to my dorm room to find things out of place. At first, it was small things. A book moved from my desk to my bed, my hairbrush on the floor instead of on my dresser. I blamed it on my own forgetfulness or on Lily, though she swore she hadn't touched my things. But then things escalated. One day I returned from class to find all of my clothes strewn across the room, as if a tornado had torn through my closet. Lily was as shocked as I was, swearing up and down that she had been in class all day and had just returned herself. As we cleaned up the mess, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The doll, which I always left sitting on my dresser, was now perched on my pillow, her glassy eyes staring directly at me. "Lily," I said, my voice shaking, "did you move the doll?" Lily looked up, her face paling as she saw where the doll was sitting. "No," she whispered. "I didn't touch it. I swear, Emily." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the doll, which I had moved back to the dresser. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt as if something was watching me. The room seemed to grow colder, and I could hear the faintest whisper, like a child's voice, just on the edge of my hearing. As the weeks passed, my life began to unravel. My grades started to slip as I struggled to stay awake in class, too afraid to sleep at night. Dark circles appeared under my eyes, and I lost weight as my appetite disappeared. Lily and my other friends began to worry, urging me to see a counselor or a doctor. But how could I explain what was happening? Who would believe me? One night, about a month after I had bought the doll, I woke up to find her sitting on my chest, her cold porcelain face inches from mine. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was paralyzed, unable to move, as the doll's eyes seemed to bore into my soul. And then, to my horror, she spoke. "Emily," the doll whispered, her voice a raspy, chilling sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Emily, you're mine now. You'll play with me forever." I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that when I opened them, this nightmare would be over. But when I looked again, the doll was still there, and now she was smiling, her tiny porcelain teeth gleaming in the moonlight. I must have fainted because the next thing I knew, Lily was shaking me awake, her face pale with worry. "Emily! Emily, wake up! You were screaming in your sleep." I sat up, my heart racing, my eyes immediately going to the dresser. The doll was sitting there, just as I had left her the night before. But now I could have sworn there was a hint of smugness in her painted smile. That was the breaking point. I knew I had to get rid of the doll, but every time I tried to throw her away or give her away, something stopped me. It was as if an invisible force was preventing me from letting her go. I tried to tell Lily and my other friends what was happening, but they all thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. Maybe the lack of sleep and the constant fear were driving me insane. But I knew deep in my heart that what I was experiencing was real. As Halloween approached, the activity around the doll intensified. Objects would fly across the room when I was alone. I would hear giggling and whispering coming from empty corners. And the nightmares. Oh, the nightmares became so vivid, so terrifying, that I was afraid to close my eyes even for a moment. On Halloween night, everything came to a head. Lily had gone to a party, leaving me alone in our dorm room. I sat on my bed, staring at the doll, determined not to take my eyes off her for even a second. As the clock struck midnight, the lights in the room began to flicker. The temperature dropped so suddenly that I could see my breath misting in the air. And then, slowly, impossibly, the doll turned her head to look directly at me. "It's time to play, Emily," she said, her voice no longer a whisper, but a harsh, grating sound that sent shivers down my spine. I watched in horror as the doll stood up, her movements jerky and unnatural. She began to grow, her porcelain limbs elongating, her dress stretching to accommodate her new size. Within moments, she was as tall as me, a grotesque parody of a human being, with her too large head and glassy eyes. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot as the doll creature approached me, her porcelain hands reaching out to grab me. "You're mine now, Emily," she repeated, her mouth opening impossibly wide, revealing row upon row of sharp, needle-like teeth. Just as her cold hands touched my skin, I found my voice and screamed. I screamed louder than I ever had in my life, a primal sound of pure terror that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The lights stopped flickering, the room warmed up, and the doll was back on the dresser, looking as innocent and lifeless as ever. Lily burst into the room moments later, having heard my scream from down the hall. She found me huddled in the corner, shaking and sobbing uncontrollably. The next day, with Lily's help, I finally managed to get rid of the doll. We took her to a remote area outside of town and buried her deep in the woods. As we covered her with dirt, I could have sworn I heard a faint giggle on the wind. It's been a year since that Halloween night, and I'd like to say that getting rid of the doll solved everything. But the truth is, I still have nightmares. I still wake up in the middle of the night, certain that I can hear the sound of porcelain feet scuttling across the floor. And sometimes, just sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see a pair of glassy, doll-like eyes staring back at me instead of my own. I don't know if I'll ever be free of the cursed doll's influence. All I know is that I'll never look at a porcelain doll the same way again. And if you ever find yourself drawn to a beautiful, antique doll with eyes that seem to follow you, run. Run as fast and as far as you can, because once she chooses you, she'll never let you go. The end. Or is it?